Okay, so I'm running around whittling pieces for these this stuff I'm doing here, and in between time my brain is working all the time and I keep coming up with reasons to come back in and film another segment. This is one of the brackets that I'm building. It's going to be, oh man, let's see if I have one here. Set up an assembly like this inside of a stock. This is all unfinished stuff that I'm going to bolt together as we go. But I feel pretty strongly that I have to set the stage. And a couple of years ago when I started this segment, I started building. One of the things I was going to do was to buy a state-of-the-art Action, state-of-the-current-art stock. And I put together a Nuvo, 10.5 pound Nuvo. State-of-the-art scope, state-of-the-art stock, the state-of-the-art, currently the best Action going, but I don't want it to be a glue-in. Glue-ins are easy, but they're not what I want, because I also want to be able to use this same Action as a 6x47. And now again we're getting up into impulses that are greater than I think this barrel joint can take. So let me get my uniform on here so I can carry my picks and my tools in case I have to point at something. You never know when I might need to reach into the bag here and get out something to illustrate, or just a pen or whatever. I got just going to turn the camera down. It's not doing any good pointed up there. Get it down here where the good stuff goes so I can show you some of this stuff that I feel is important. Again, to reiterate, we're dragging bench rest practice into non-bench rest guns. This state-of-the-art gun, my attempt at putting together a state-of-the-art gun, I got wrapped up in two different problems. Number one, I decided I was going to build it as the whole assembly as a nutted assembly, because I couldn't get a barrel wrench to fit this Action correctly. As you can see, this Action is fluted. Okay? Now, there are things here that led me to stop this project because I couldn't get it to lock up the way I wanted it to, except as a PPC. It shoots fine as a PPC, but PPCs are child's play. PPCs are easy. So what I did on this one is I roughed up, I scarred this up under here and scarred this up under here, and you can see the glue residue. I epoxied inside and outside and in the screw holes and upside down. But first, before I could do that, I had to screw this barrel on. The reason I was playing with the nutted assemblies was because I didn't feel I could grip this Action well, because the ring section is so tiny. Plus, my only plan was to glue down these bases. Now these are Chizo Weaver bases, which don't understand I did that to get a greater bearing surface than the Davidson bases that are currently commonly used on these. I'm convinced that due to the necessary clearances, these tend to shake loose and move around. Whether anybody else believes that or not is immaterial to me. It's what I believe, and I'm no one building this. So I just say, whatever. I want these permanently affixed. Now the Kelbleys understand this problem. That's why I brought these Kelbley Actions over here. You take a Kelbley plain old Atlas tactical Action, right, fresh out of the box. See that right there? That is a stainless steel fitted pin that is pinned forevermore through the Action. This base, glue it down, screw it down, do whatever you want. But that slip fit on there is such that it takes a labor of love and alignment to get that. I could shake this down onto that pin and stop shy so the light was shining through here, and trust me, the fitments are so good that the gap would remain consistent. To those of you who build things, that'll make sense. If this gap were sloppy, this could flop up and down and do all kinds of things. It's not, and it doesn't. Let's see if I can get this in. I'm not sure that I have my focuses correct here, but anyway, you can slide this up the pin and that gap will, there's very little play in this. It's a finely fitted pin. The problem occurs when somebody like me takes one of these actions and whacks it out, modifies it, and splits that top rail. So on this one, it has the pin in the back, as you can see. But on this one, I had to fit another pin in the front because I split this. I had to go out and tool up and figure out how to fit these pins super tight. These have got a fitted set of pins in the front. These Atlases have basically done everything right for, they have all the bench rest. No, I better back up. They have a lot of accuracy characteristics. They've got a trigger hanger so that the trigger is fully adjustable for a variety of things. Trigger hanger is a high-end unit. Let's just go back to this unmodified one that I haven't started hacking on yet. Comes with a trigger hanger. Comes with a manual ejector. Such a beautiful thing. Most of the ejectors out, this is another thing I haven't even touched on yet. Most of your bench rest guns, including this one, have a spring-loaded ejector. The case comes back and goes, bashes out the side and dings the neck all up. I've got this one modified to where it doesn't ding the necks, and my other spring-loaded ones are modified to where they don't ding the necks too badly. But that's the bane of my existence. I'm going to run this camera up just a fuzz lick. Sorry, I'm not very good at this, but this is an information channel. It's not your typical YouTube channel. I understand. I'm supposed to dress the same, act the same, be the same, come out here, smile at the camera. Hey guys, this is Al again. Ha ha ha, how's it going? What's it doing? Oh, that's just crap. That's a waste of air. I don't have time for any of that. This is information only. Take it or leave it. So I'm trying to cram a lot of information into a short amount of time, and right now you'll notice that this has got a big old goofy sleeve on it. The reason is it was threaded for this long because this was one of my barrel nut barrels. Look right here. Krieger, 13.5 twist, 72 ounces with nut, no tuner. This is also set up for a state-of-the-art tuner. This tuner is, where's my focus? Well, you'll have to trust me. I can't even see the threads. I don't know what's wrong with this thing. This tuner is set up for an Ezel tuner, which I would call current state-of-the-art. So, I'm doing all the right things, breaking the one monstrous rule. It's not a glue in. There's crap underneath here that I'd have to take it apart to show you. And I still have the bases affixed to this. You'll notice that from firing it, the glue around this, there has been some movement because the glue around the screws has busted loose. You have to understand, I glued these screws completely into the action. I don't fear the epoxy. It doesn't bother me at all. I can easily get that to break loose later. But it has broken loose up around the head of the screws. Now, I'm not convinced these bases are moving. I don't think that they are. This one's been taken on and off a bunch of times, but the reason, to get back to it, the reason this all started was I didn't want to have to take these bases off. I didn't want to drill holes in the action. This is an expensive piece of kit here. This isn't some cheesy little $2.99 action that I picked up down at Walmart. This is an expensive action. But it has some problems. So I wanted to screw in, take apart a bowl, And it all goes back to the vibration control. It all goes back. I'm trying to, the reason I'm making this segment is to again clarify why I'm doing this. It's like, I'm not just doing it to do something different. I'm doing it because we have a problem. Right now, with a 6 ppc and a glue in, I can reach in from the back with an action wrench and tighten this thing to 70 or 80. 50 is probably enough. But well under 100 foot-pounds using a standard inch 2 barrel. That's a 1/10 of an inch of, at best, abutment surface. 70 pounds will affix a PPC. And life goes on. This is what wins. This is the standard of the industry. Worldwide, not just nationwide. Now, I want to be able to shoot the 6x47 case in this. I've got a bunch of action set up with Magnum bolt faces. I want to be able to go all the way up to 300 WSM, 338 WSM, 338 Lapua improved, which I call my McCallum case. Now that's starting to put 7 tons of energy on the system. And when you do that, things tend to come apart. So all of this is because I'm covering more ground. I'm killing more birds. I'm doing stuff that's never really been done before, that hasn't been explored well. So, this gun shoots adequately. I could win with it. But I can't... The nutting system fell on its face. I found out, my testing showed that the nutting system is flawed. Other people have had good luck with it. Good for them. Hallelujah. I don't like it. Again, nutted PPCs probably don't move. When I'm doing this motion, I'm trying to say that that nut allows for a coaxial movement between barrel and action. Now, I think you can pretty easily lock it up. Now, again, I have to keep... The reason for this whole thing was I couldn't grab the action right. I couldn't get enough pressure on with a rear entry action wrench, so I thought this nutting thing was going to solve the whole conundrum. I can now put this barrel in my vise, which will hold 500 foot-pounds of torque, so the barrel becomes immovable, and with no stress on the action whatsoever, I could tighten that nut, fix everything, never have to pull the scope, never have to pull the bases, never have to do a wraparound action wrench. The problem is, when I convinced myself that the nutting system was flawed for anything bigger than a PPC BR case, I threw the whole thing out the window. Hence, we have a barrel that's been fired 50 times maybe in testing with nuts. And I've done that same thing. I've taken my 64,000 Loctite or my 680 Loctite, whichever one I was using. I've machined a tapered sleeve here to cover the whole nutted area. I probably remachined this shoulder area here. Yeah, it was probably good. Doesn't matter. I machined over tight threads that would just barely go together, which is a mistake, stainless to stainless, but this is designed to never come back off. And of course at one time it was just a parallel block with threads through it. I 680'd or I Loctited this. Incidentally, this Loctite thing has been working out. 680 Loctite, which is easy to use, cleans up with MEK, methyl ethyl ketone. I don't know how to remove it because I haven't yet. On that subject, I'm going to show you something. This burro was out from a few days ago when I was going through this. This right here is one of these. I got this little skinny barrel here, which at one time was a nutted assembly. It was a thing. But when I have a barrel blank that I paid $300-400 for, this I believe is a Bart line, and I do an experiment and I have to chop it off and start over again, I don't throw that barrel away. But it's tapered. This is an LV light varmint taper, so we're getting down into the 1.2 and less area here. Not something I want to screw into an action. So what I've done is, you can probably see the residue in there. this is a test of the 680. Understand, I'm digressing crazy here, but I've got to talk about this stuff. This is a melanited recoil lug, so it's slippery. It's like snot on a glass doorknob. And I had it finally machined to here. I squirted some 680 in there, and I stuck another recoil lug on behind just to hold that one in place. That's a tight fit. And then I tightened a nut onto it, and I drove this up against the shank or the shoulder. Let me see if I can get this off. Hang on. Okay. Now, these lugs, as I turn, you can see the flat on that side. You can see the flat on this side. This flat, this relief, this chamfer is remarkably less on one side than it is on the other. Now, I have some other recoil lugs from PTG that are absolutely 90-degree wedges right here. I mean, 90-degree corners right here. And so they butt deeply when you run them up against that little shank. They butt deeply. They maximize the bearing surface. But I ordered up a bunch of these from Kelbley's because of the fact that they do have a fairly small radius on one side so that I can run a tool bit in. And what that means is I get the biggest bearing that I can get against what's left of my barrel shank. When I say I can get, look at the difference between, let's forget about the fact that I ground the bottom off. I'm getting to that. This is what the recoil lug looks like from the top. Got some marks on it for indexing. This barrel's timed and none of that matters. This thing barely goes on there. I put some Loctite 680. Now trust me, I had tried this before with epoxy. This 680 Loctite makes epoxy look wimpy. If epoxy is, or if 680 Loctite is Arnold Schwarzenegger's strength, then epoxy, and we're talking high sol, best grade, Acraglass liquid mixed properly. If this 680 is strongman, Arnold Schwarzenegger strength, epoxy is my grandma's strength. It's that much different. I can break loose epoxy like nothing. And super glue is not even worth talking about because super glue only sticks for pull-away force. It has no shear force whatsoever. You can use super glue, cyanoacrylate adhesive, glue a part down and machine it on your mill and then tap it with a block and it'll pop loose. It has no shear strength. So what I'm searching for is something that has everything. I want a way to affix this. So this, I come to find out green Loctite is in a class of its own, and it's designed specifically for affixing sleeves onto shafts. They claim that you can slide a sleeve onto a shaft, let it harden up, and then machine it as though, well, I did that. And let me just tell you what I did with this. This is fascinating. I machined a nice fit. I stuck this recoil lug on there. This is a test. I'm not saying you should do this or anybody should do this. I did this to find out how good this 680 crap really is. I mean, I test things to destruction because I gave it a test that I knew flat out could not, would not work. So, green Loctited this on, stuck a backer behind it, tightened it up hand tight. Got some pressure against it. Hand tight with the block. I might have used an action, I don't know. Left it overnight, came back the next day, stuck this pig in the lathe, got it spun up, ran a cutter bit it from the back side and tried to cut. With it spinning in the lathe, I tried to incise here and cut this as it spun. Interrupted cut. No backing. I didn't have anything up. I came into it from the back. This is sticking out of the lathe. I ran into it with a tool bit and started pushing on it with a carbide tool bit to try to cut through and let that chunk fly. In fact, I had glasses on and I was stood to the side and that chunk was going to take off. By the chunk, I mean the whole bottom half of the recoil lug. So I was going to cut in just to save time. Get it close, maybe snap it off. I got in, as you can see here from my marks. See if I could get the marks to show. Well, I don't know if that's going to show or not. My camera skills are bad. I got it in almost halfway with no support whatsoever. We're talking a piece glued, heat buildup. It wasn't getting much heat buildup. I had the bit cut in such a way that while that section right there is only cut about 1/3 of the way through, a little further out it was cut 2/3 of the way through. I was halfway through this recoil lug. And whatever this stuff is that they use, it's a ground hardened product. It does not cut well. This stuff is not designed to be post-machined with my crappy equipment. As I'm feeding into here, it started to work harden, so I started to plunge it. I started to pump it. Yeah, I'm a backyard hacker, admittedly. And I popped it loose. But I glued it back on and I machined that sucker off. That is machined off in the lathe. I don't expect it to ever come off. I've made an abutment surface out of a recoil lug, and I turned that off in the lathe with no back support whatsoever, just the glue holding it in place. I find that to be pretty impressive.